so when you'll see like a clean brand, they'll often say that, but that's the easiest thing you can do is removing chemicals of concern. And we've been doing that now for a very long time. The harder part is actually changing the whole industry in the world. And what I mean by that is looking underneath removing of chemicals to do things like, are ingredients being ethically and responsibly sourced? Are you testing for, asbestos and talc, or, these, persistent PFAS chemicals? Like, are you doing the testing? Are you actually trying to go in and be part of longstanding change?
Let's welcome my friend Gregg Renfrew, the founder of Beautycounter and the true pioneer of clean beauty, to today's podcast. She founded Beautycounter in 2011 and charted an innovative path for clean beauty. Gregg continues to set the highest standards for safety as she pushes the industry forward, testifying in front of Congress to advance legislative reform so that everyone has access to safer products. She's also inspiring a community of thousands of women to demand better for themselves by championing women's entrepreneurship. And she's led Beautycounter's growth as it's launched more than 100 safer, award-winning products, ultimately building an omni-channel business that's proven that clean beauty isn't a trend, it's here to stay. Oh, Gregg, it's so great to have you on the show. I've been wanting to do this for so long. I can think back to our breakfast at Farm Shop, which was like right after Sebastian was born, and I cannot believe he's 5. It's been so amazing to watch Beautycounter, just the explosion. You've created just an amazing brand with so much advocacy, giving so many women the opportunity to stand up for what they believe in, to pull chemicals out of their beauty products. You are a rock star, and it's so fun to watch. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, well, listen, that right back at you. And I know, I can't believe how long it's been since we first met. And thank you for saying all those great things. And back at you. I mean, I've watched you help people live better, healthier lives for many, many years. And I think that you and I are very aligned in our desire to make the world healthier and better for all people. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, for everyone that doesn't know you, I'd be surprised. But if you don't know Gregg, she's the founder of Beautycounter. Can you take us back to the beginning? I mean, what inspired you to start a beauty line?
So, it's funny because I don't come from the beauty industry, and I'm not even a huge makeup person. I started Beautycounter. Well, the journey for me began a really long time ago. It began in 2006 when a good friend of mine, Leela Rose, asked me to watch a film called An Inconvenient Truth. And you've probably seen the documentary film, but at the time, I was really unaware of the fact that I was doing things that were truly detrimental to the earth in my daily life. And so I watched that film, and it just sort of rocked my world. And subsequent to that, over the next couple of years, was living in New York City. I had given birth to our oldest daughter, Phoebe. I was working full time. I thought I was doing everything right as a mom, shopping local farmers markets when I could, and like thinking I was doing all these things, getting rid of all the plastics in my home and things that I knew were detrimental to the earth. But I was watching everyone I know get sick. I had so many friends who were in their 30s, 40s, even 20s getting diagnosed with different types of cancer, both women and men. I watched so many of my friends, and I'm sure you would say the same thing, struggle with significant fertility issues. My best friend finally, after many years, gave birth through a surrogate. It was a really long battle. So I watched that happen with her and so many others. And on top of that, I was watching so many of my friends give birth to kids with pretty significant health issues, whether that was, severe asthma or ADHD or autism. But it started to make me wonder, what has gone so terribly wrong with the health of the earth and also with human health. And with that sort of curiosity came this exploration into what was making us sick and making the earth sick. And one of the things that I came to realize is that our exposure to toxic chemicals is wreaking havoc on everything. And with that in mind, I became pretty obsessed with removing toxic chemicals to the best of my abilities from my life. And so that was the beginning of this very long journey that led me to founding Beautycounter.
I feel like for most of the moms listening, they probably have had the same experience as you. You care about what you're eating and you want to be active, but then all of a sudden you get pregnant, or you're trying to get pregnant, and you take it to the next level. Like, wow, I'm in charge of another human's life and their health. And once you get down that rabbit hole, it kind of doesn't ever end.
Yeah.
Like, why is it in everything? So,
But yes. And I thought I was making good choices. And one of the things that really, really bummed me out was I was bathing I think by the time I'd had my son as well, so I maybe had two of my three children in something that was called, like, I'm not going to say the brand, but natural foaming oatmeal body wash. And I thought it was totally healthy. It kind of smelled like oatmeal. It kind of looked healthy. And then, a friend of mine said, if you looked at the environmental working groups, Skin Deep database, I went on it and it rated like an 8 out of 9 for toxicity. And I was outraged. So we think we're making good choices, but because sort of the industries have kept all these secrets from us, we actually don't know oftentimes what we're putting in and on our bodies.
It's so funny because I've told this story in the past, but uh, I grew my business and I didn't take any marketing dollars for sharing anything on Instagram, like paid to play or paid ad for 6 years of the business because it was really important to me that I didn't look like an influencer and that I was an expert and I was seeing clients. I wasn't just here to like share on social media. But the first time I got a big deal, it was like the biggest deal. It was like $10,000 for this beauty brand, and I think it's probably the same brand for an oatmeal and body wash, and I had to use it in the shower, and it was a collaboration with Pop Sugar, and it was this big deal. And my friend who was my manager at the time was like, "Kelly, this is great. Oh my God, you've never had a deal and now you're getting like a big deal." It would have been, I think, 4 months of my rent controlled apartment in Brentwood at the time. And I was the only income. And I looked it up on EWG and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And but it's making those decisions. Like you decide exactly what you want the ethos of Beauty Counter to be. You cannot waver because
Yes.
that's the only, we are so influenced by consumer marketing. We are so influenced by the fact that this looks like supernatural, or the person who is the advocate or spokesperson for this brand doesn't wear makeup, seems really like low key and easy
Oh,
going.
and doesn't use the product when they're not getting paid millions of dollars to use it. That's the other thing,
Yeah.
which is why we didn't build our brand on celebrities. But you're absolutely right. I mean, when I went through this process of learning what was really going on out there, making sweeping changes in my home. And there were certain changes that were easy for me to make. Like it was easy for me to wash my floors with water and vinegar. It was easy for me to take shoes off at the door. It was easy for me, over time, and it's expensive to get out of plastic containers and to, use glass storage containers, which I know is really expensive, but you can do it over time. But then when it came to skincare and color cosmetics, and go back, this is now 2009, 2010, there wasn't anything on the market. And I can't prove that I created the word clean, but I'm pretty sure I created the word clean beauty. Like it was all green and eco at the time. And I kept saying, well, that's going to limit us to people that are really focused just on the environment. I want everyone to think about what they're putting on their bodies. And no one was telling any of us this. And all these things that my friends would be like, oh, I saw so and she's like, to your point, all American, all natural, and she's using such and such a brand. I'm like, that brand is super toxic. And I promise you, the minute she walks out the door, she's not using that brand. Because you and I live in California, we know these people because all these actors because you go to school with them, and we live in Los Angeles, and that they're also living healthier lives, but it's a source of income. So I agree with you. You have to stay true to your own North Star. And if that is about providing people with information so they can make informed choices and live healthier, safer lives, you have to stay the course no matter what the economic upside is from going awry. It's a non-negotiable for you and for me.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's why we've always like been on the same page in the same book per se, is it's just you have to have that mentality because everything always like slips a little bit. There's no perfection in this world. Like you can't get away from the endocrine disrupting chemicals. So how can you make those choices that you're talking about in an easy way? It's easy to take your shoes off at the door. It's easy to maybe switch out to some cleaner soaps, or, wash your floors with vinegar, or there's so many cool brands now coming out. You have your Branch Basics and things like that. But beauty was a whole nother behemoth, and that was a big mission. So, I mean, how did you even take it on? Like, what was the first product? Did you raise money? Did you bootstrap it? Like, where did it really start?
So, okay. So, so now go fast forward, it's about 2000, late 2010. And I had been introduced to Christy Coleman, who was the first, sort of leading makeup artist to clean up her kit. She had lost her father to Lou Gehrig's and was convinced it had something to do with pesticide exposure on her family's farm in Oklahoma, or in Texas. And she and I started talking, and we were like, okay, we need to make clean makeup. And which of course is obvious because she's a makeup artist. But then we got all the way down to this path and we thought, well, wait, we can't put clean makeup on top of toxic skincare. So she and I started talking. I didn't come from the beauty industry, which I think was actually an advantage because, you know, when you go to sort of disrupt an industry, actually some form of naivete is actually a good thing because I wasn't accustomed to their standards. I didn't really have any relationships there. I didn't really care what anyone thought about what I was doing. And I didn't look to anyone else for validation or information. I just started calling people to say, like I had a friend who worked for L'Oreal in hair care, and I said, "Can you introduce me to someone?" And then someone introduced me to someone, and the environmental working group introduced me to a green chemist, and it was like one conversation after another. I did have to raise money. I didn't really have very much money at the time to do it, and quite frankly, again, because we were the first to do it, there were no contract manufacturing plants that had formulations that had even been started. I mean, they thought it was completely insane. They said, this is absolutely impossible. You cannot drive this level of performance without these ingredients. And I said, well, you can and you will, and we're going to figure it out. And they used to call us, they hated me and they called us brutal counter, because we would go through like 400 iterations. And normally people would be like 1, 2, 3, and they're done. But, you know, as one of my old partners, Michael McGeever, said, you know, Greg used to tell all these manufacturers and chemists that you need to make the best chocolate cake that I've ever had. She's like, it's like you went to the best restaurant in the world, you had the best chocolate cake in the world, and you come back to us and say, I need that exact taste and quality of the cake without the sugar, chocolate, eggs, or flour. And we feel like, okay, sure, no problem. But someone had to do it. And so I just did it one step at a time. You know, people say like, did you ever think you were going to build this huge thing? No, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a couple guys, you know, who were lawyers who took a chance on me. This guy, Brian Wolf, and his two partners, Matt Johnson and PJ Shapiro, said, we'll give you a little bit of money to get started. And we started working on it, but it's just literally, you know, this is being resourceful and curious, and it's just one call after the other, and you start to build over time.
So when you got the green light and they're like, okay, we believe in you, go for it, go be brutal counter, iterate, iterate, iterate. What was the first product or what was the first hero product that really got you a little bit of a name? And how did you get people talking about it and build, like, I want to call it a sales force, but a team of consultants or advocates to go out there and pound the pavement in this completely new space?
Yeah. So when we launched the company, I think we had what we called our essential skincare line, and I think we had a face wash, you know, a day cream, a night cream. I mean, I think it was like 5 products or something, and then packaging that's like so old now. It's so funny. But it was great at the time. Um, I think at the time, my goal from a product standpoint was to create as good as products as some of the typical brands that people were using in day-to-day, just essential skincare. Wasn't a huge, you know, anti-aging, which I hate that term, but you know, sort of, it wasn't a performance line per se. It was one of those lines that anyone, women and men, all ages could use. And so I think that we launched with that early on, and I don't think we had a hero SKU, but I think what we had was a important story to tell. And I think that, you know, for me, I literally flew all over the United States of America for 2 years. And I think my 4 children, I was gone all the time. And that was a huge sacrifice. I mean, now I wish, you know, we had this and we could have done this, but we didn't. But I would literally go to cities, and I'd had anywhere from, you know, 30 people to show up to 350 people to show up. And I would just tell them a few facts. And again, this dates back to 2012 pre-launch. I would say, you know, 1 in 2 men and 1 in 3 women will be diagnosed with cancer. We've not updated a major federal law regulating the cosmetics industry since 1938. And since World War II, we introduced many tens of thousands of chemicals into commerce, of which less than 10% have been tested for safety in human health. We all think about what we put in our bodies. And I know, you know, these people, we all do. They go for a jog or they go to yoga, they drink, you know, organic green smoothies, and then they put toxic chemicals from head to toe on their largest organ. And so for me, it was almost like running a political campaign. I just wanted to educate people because I knew at the time, most Americans had no idea there were chemicals of concern in their products. And why would they? You know, everything says, you know, natural oatmeal body wash, all natural, you know, preservative free, fragrance free. But what they didn't realize is that the industry wasn't regulated. So people could say anything they wanted to. It's not like the food industry where you're actually having to be honest about what's in the, I mean, not that they don't hide things too, but at least there were labeling requirements in cosmetic and personal care that weren't. And so for me, it was just about arming people with information so that they could make informed choices, whether they chose Beautycounter products or not. I wanted to change, my mission is to change the world. And my goal was to get safer products into the hands of everyone, whether they were our products or someone else's, or they just put organic olive oil on their body and called it a day. All those things were acceptable to me. I just didn't want people to keep putting themselves in harm's way unknowingly.
So for those of us that are not as intimately in that scene, why is this the most like the least regulated consumer product category? And like how are I mean, obviously that's gonna fire you up, but like, do we not have the funding for it? Is it just they don't think it's gonna make you sick? Like they don't understand that it it can be absorbed into your skin or bloodstream. Like where's the disconnect?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I don't honestly have the answer. I think that, I mean, this will be an unpopular answer. I mean, of course, you hear the word beauty and men just kind of their eyes glaze over. And when we spent all the time that we did on Capitol Hill, I mean, we do have uh, a lack of balance of power in terms of who is fighting for legislative reform in any area, right? They're typically more men than women. This has nothing to do with your party. This has everything to do with, is this an issue that people understood? And I think when people would say cosmetics, and I know this because I've raised money and I talk about this all the time, it's not about, I always say, like, every single one of us, women, men, children, everyone has been touched directly or indirectly by the health issues we face as a nation. This is one of the contributing factors. And it's not about my lipstick. I mean, it could be about my lipstick, but it's about shaving cream, sunscreen, deodorant, body lotion, hair shampoos, and it's everything. And so I think part of the problem, although not the whole problem, is that people would say, well, I don't wear makeup, so I don't need to worry about this. But I'm like, no, 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 you do. And you also have a sister and a daughter and a mother and all these other people in your life. So I think that was one of the reasons. I think also you had a bunch of companies that were lobbying against cosmetic reform because, and in fairness to these incumbent brands, if you, let's just say you launched a formula in 1960 that everyone, and you've seen this in your world, in the food world, right? I mean, I'll use this. It's hard for Coca-Cola to say, wow, guys, we've been selling you Coca-Cola for the last, whatever, 80, 100 years, whatever, however long it's been. And now we're going to bring you healthy Coke. You've got a massive PR problem. There's no way you can deliver the same sensations of Coca-Cola with all healthy ingredients. Well, if you're a beauty brand and someone's accustomed to texture, scent, formulation, like how it feels, how it performs, and you remove chemicals, just even one or two, it can completely change everything. So you've got capital markets putting pressure on companies. You have, all about profitability. You have consumers expecting certain formulas that they've grown and loved for years that can't be replicated with different ingredients, whether they're safe or not safe ingredients, they just can't be changed. You don't want the story out there. And you've got, a lot of the legislators and people and members of Congress oftentimes are men who are not necessarily as focused on it. But we did change things. And we, last year in December, we, were part of the MOCRA, sort of the modernization of the Cosmetics Act. And I think that modernization was the first step towards cosmetic reform in this country since 1938. But it's not easy getting things done. This. Everyone listening knows it's hard to get anything done on the state and federal level right now, given where we are. So lots of contributing factors, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. I'd love for you to explain what that act has done to update those standards. I feel like what you did personally at Beautycounter with the Never list, which is 2,800 questionable or harmful chemicals that you will say no to, that you're not putting in your products. If someone doesn't have the EWD app or they're not using Skin Deep or one of these apps to kind of like check out the ingredients in their products, I will point them to Beautycounter's Never list and say like, look, just print this out or check this out on your phone and start to look at some of the things as you run out. What are you using? Are these ingredients in it? How can you swap? Because what you've done is all the research for all of us to say like, these are the chemicals that are implicated in human health or questionable, and you should just know them because informed consent, right? So obviously, you're not going to have the government or any regulation like regulators pulling out 2,800 questionable ingredients. You would have every big beauty company coming after you big time. So
Look, a lot of the big, in fairness, a lot of the big beauty companies have now have been striving to make changes. Not all of them. There are certain of them that have done a good job. For them, they started with really focusing on sustainability. Like you have, huge companies like L'Oreal and Estee Lauder that have really been focused on sustainability, especially L'Oreal has really led that way. And I think that a lot of these larger companies and brands are really trying. And so I want to give them credit for really moving forward because it isn't easy. I never wanted to point fingers because it wasn't done with any malintent in the beginning. I think at the beginning, we didn't know that these chemicals were wreaking havoc on our bodies, but now we know, and now we can do better. And so I think in terms of the legislation that was passed last year, I think that there were a couple of key call outs. There were a number of things, but one of the most important things was, adverse health impact reporting and FDA's ability to recall products. So up until now, and I'll give you an example. The Brazilian blowout was a really, really harmful thing, especially for those administering it. And they now have some safer ingredients. But when it came out, it had incredibly high levels of like carcinogenic, chemicals and formaldehyde, formaldehyde, right, to straighten your hair. And people were calling in and saying like people are getting sick, or there was When Hair Care where people were losing their hair, children, like thousands of people. There was something like, I can't remember how many thousands of people had complained, but the FDA did not have the power to recall the product. They could suggest, but unlike food, if there's a salmonella breakout, it's like, boom, it's off the shelves in 2 seconds. In personal care, not the same way. So there are labeling requirements right now, transparency on labeling. There's the FDA has the ability to create a mandatory recall, which is huge, right? Because that wasn't there before. If there are known allergens, they have to be put in there. With all that said, it was a huge step forward. We have a lot more work to do. It's just barely scratching the surface, but at least it allowed for some movement. And by July of 2024, these companies will have to be reporting on these things. These things will fully be in place, and it will begin to shift the market significantly and protect the health and safety of people. And for those that are listening that know nothing about this, first of all, you shouldn't have to know. We know that it's upsetting that you even need to worry about this. But I will say this. If you just do one thing for yourself, no matter which brand you shop, go for fragrance free, truly fragrance free, because so many of the most harmful chemicals are hidden under IP law in fragrance. So I always say, like, no matter what, go for unscented fragrance free products and you'll be doing yourself a world of good.
that's great. I love that tip. I feel like that once I went fragrance free because of just breastfeeding my kids, I didn't want, my deodorant to smell or my lotion to smell. You're like skin to skin with a newborn. Now if I do have fragrance, I'm like, whoo, like sometimes I can end up with like a headache or feels like a tension headache behind my eyes almost. And I can pretty much always attribute it to like fragrances I'm not used to, even if someone wears it into my home or, has it, it might even be their detergent a lot of times.
Well, it's interesting you say it because it's true. And it's also in your new car smell. It's all those phthalates that bind it to hold it on your body, in your hair, on your nylon shower curtains. It's like there's this class of chemicals, these phthalates that are really, really disruptive to our endocrine system because they so closely mimic it that our body doesn't know to reject it. There's certain chemicals that the body's like out. It's like if you get food poisoning, it wants it out, right? But not with phthalates. And so they're often found in fragrance, or like almost always, I think, found in fragrance because they hold that scent to your body. And you're right, you do get headaches because so many, and it's in laundry detergents, it's in dishwasher detergents, it's in everything. So I always say to people like, avoid those vinyl shower curtains, use fabric ones. If you are getting a new car, open your windows, air these things out because they're just terrible.
Right. And we know that these have a massive impact on our human health, but it also can feel overwhelming to make these changes or to know where our products are coming from, even like down to traceability. So what are you doing at Beautycounter to kind of, speaking of shower curtains, open the curtains, let people behind the curtain and inform them about like your standards in manufacturing and your standards in traceability? Like you've set the stage and set the standard when it comes to ingredients. How are you doing it in regards to where it's coming from in manufacturing practices?
One of the things I think so I'm really proud of the fact that we really created and pioneered this clean beauty movement, and we've led the industry to a much better place. And I'm glad that companies like Ulta and Sephora and everyone else have these clean standards, and they have, lists of chemicals that they are removing from products. And that is terrific. And I'm so glad that's happening. And, so when you'll see like a clean brand, they'll often say that, but that's the easiest thing you can do is removing chemicals of concern. And we've been doing that now for a very long time. The harder part is actually changing the whole industry and the world. And what I mean by that is looking underneath chemicals, removing of chemicals to do things like, are ingredients being ethically and responsibly sourced? Are you testing for, asbestos and talc, or, these, persistent PFAS chemicals? Like, are you doing the testing? Are you actually trying to go in and be part of long-standing change? So for example, we found discrepancies in our information around the mica that we're using. And mica is in everything. It's in anything that has any shimmer in color cosmetics or luminizing anything, but it's also in your cars, electronics. Mica is used all over the world, but it's a lot of it is used in color cosmetics and personal care products. We started to see there was just not the things didn't add up. And so we decided we were going to go on a journey to really figure out who was mining this mica and were people being paid and what was really going on. And we were the first company to physically audit all of our mines in Brazil, in India, in Japan. Like, no one's ever done this. And we worked, with others to do this. But in 40 years, no one had shown up in these places. And, guess what we found? We found little children, 4 or 5 years old in mines, pulling mica out in incredibly dangerous circumstances. The fact that they're even there in and of itself is horrendous. Not being paid a fair wage, oftentimes not being paid anything at all. And we decided as a company that's based on transparency, and I know transparency is a really, overused word, but for us, I've always said, listen, we're going to tell you exactly what's in our products and how we make our products. You can choose to like them or not like them. That's your choice. You'll be informed. That is my commitment to you. Perfection is not my commitment. We do the best job we can with the information we have available to us today to remove chemicals of concern. I'm sure there will be things that we'll learn over time that weren't perfect. We don't know everything. No one does, but we work with, scientists. We've funded research. We work with the Environmental Working Group, with, a million different nonprofit organizations, and we've researched ad nauseum. We have our own internal team. We do our best. What we can promise you is we're transparent about what's going on. So with the example of mica, a lot of companies are saying, well, we're using synthetic mica, and so we're safe, right? And I'm like, but that doesn't actually solve the problem, because in these communities, it is their only source of income. It's the only way they can feed their families. So what we needed to do was to partner on the ground with local nonprofits to start making sure that we were getting these kids out of the mine, that we were of a long-term, it's a long-standing process of systemic change. To me, it's like, you got to get to the root of what's going on. And then over time, try to fix things on a systemic level. And for us, it wasn't about telling everyone we just moved to synthetic mica. That was putting a Band-Aid on the problem. For us, it was like owning that there are problems out here, owning that we're part of the problem, holding our manufacturing partners accountable, going into these communities, and then transparently bringing our consumers along this journey with us to explain what's going on with responsibly, sourced palm oil, what's going on in Madagascar with the vanilla we're using, looking at, are you actually trying to help change everything? Or are you just trying to, I often see like so many brands will say, oh, if you buy this, we're going to plant a tree. I'm like, well, why don't you get out of the virgin plastic? First of all, it's like a marketing campaign. This isn't a marketing campaign. Beautycounter is a movement, and we are a mission-based organization through and through. And so everything we do is harder. We try to set the standards for the whole industry and hope people will follow our lead. And so it's not about how to say, well, plant a tree, but I'm still going to use virgin plastic. No, that's not how it works. For us, it's like, okay, look at the harsh reality and try to make a real, systemic change.
What are some examples of things that you've done, like mica, where you're like, it's harder, like it's been harder. This is what is standard in the industry, but we don't want to go standard. We want to be better. And we know better, so we're doing better. Can you give me some examples in the beauty industry of things that were kind of shocking to you, being that this wasn't your space prior to starting Beautycounter?
Well, first of all, everything we've done is harder because we're always paving the road and sort of navigating uncharted waters without all the information, trying to do an incredible job, honestly, to set the higher standards for ourselves. So some of the things that have been really, really difficult have been things like Well, one, just driving performance of products to meet consumers' expectations without all these ingredients in and of itself is a nightmare. So let's just start with that. That is incredibly challenging to do. But well beyond that, it's, when you say things like, people will make claims like cruelty-free or vegan. Well, is it really vegan? At some point along the way, was someone testing on something? Like, do you actually know that? Can you actually stand behind what you're saying? Oftentimes we won't claim vegan because we know somewhere along the chain, someone tested on an animal, or someone used, an embryo. I mean, it's very, very complicated. So for us, we try to really focus on being transparent and, sustainable packaging, another really complicated issue. Plastic is so harmful, lasts forever. Glass, is heavier. There's a lot more that goes into, trying to transport glass and all the things that need to be there to protect it. I'm just using that as one example because it's really easy to say to cosmetic companies, well, you're using all this plastic, but then because of carbon footprint, but it's all complicated. And so for us, it's about setting high standards, working towards those standards authentically every single day, and then being honest about where we are in the journey and not trying to tell everyone, oh, well, we have offset our complete carbon footprint or we're carbon neutral. Well, no, it's not that easy. And I think we try to be the company that tells you the truth.
Right. I mean, I've only had one experience with that personally in looking at packaging for my product. And it's mind blowing what people will tell you. Like I can just give you an example of our bags. I wanted to go compostable. And they're like, yeah, you can go compostable. It only has to be 80% compostable for you to claim compostable on the outside. My product is that's not compostable to me if my client can't remove the compostable part from the plastic part or the paper part. It's actually not technically compostable. I'm never going to put that on the outside of the bag. That's lying. Like, and the rules are if it is enough this way, you can claim it this way. And
Well,
it's
we have the same thing in the beauty industry. So you'll see a lot of companies that have been claiming preservative free. And what they do is they pre-preserve the raw ingredients and then they extract it and you don't have to claim that it's free. And I'm like, no, 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 that doesn't work for our company. You
yeah,
don't pre-preserve an ingredient with whatever, preserve system you're using and then pretend that there are no preservatives in it. Of course there are preservatives in there. And all companies that have anything that has any shelf life more than a week that's not refrigerated, those you need some preservatives because you don't want to put mold and bacteria onto your skin, right? So you try to use the safest preservatives and the least amount of toxicity, but preservatives are meant to kill. But that's an example of, like, it's a loophole. There are all these loopholes and you don't have to make these claims. And we've been a company that said, no, we are going to tell consumers the truth. That is our promise to you, is to help you make an informed choice and do the best job we can with the information. And so I also say, you'll see us say Beautycounter's products are safer instead of safe. I can't promise you that I have every answer. A lot of companies will say totally safe. Well, do they even know? Are they testing? It's hard to know.
yeah. That's interesting. And I've, used to go strictly towards like the whole food style brands in the beginning that would say preservative free because like fragrance preservatives have a really bad reputation for like skin microbiome or whatever the case may be. But I don't the other story, like you just said, whether it's like mold or bacteria growth in that product, I had perioral dermatitis and I was like, what is this from? Like, why am I having this persistent dermatitis? No, it's gut related, but I'm also putting things on my skin that maybe aren't preserved in a way that is protecting the integrity of the product for the shelf life that I'm keeping it in my bathroom. And I think a lot of us were never taught. I mean, I look at my mom's beauty products and I'm like, I think you got this 5 years ago. Like, we probably shouldn't be using this mascara still because she used it few and far between. And it's
Yeah.
not an everyday product. And we're just keeping things around. When it comes to beauty and picking beauty products that are effective and that you can use regularly and keep in your bathroom, like how often are you replenishing your beauty products and what are you using personally as like basics for maybe those, I know you said like more active line, less of like a just an everyday line.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I would say, as you contemplate this as a consumer, and if for those who are, dipping their toe into this, some people have gone all the way to one extreme and other people haven't even started. I always will tell people that leave on products, things that go onto your skin versus say a rinse off conditioner in your shower. Leave on products are absorbed into your skin and into your bloodstream. And so therefore those things are things to prioritize if you're prioritizing your spend or starting. I think things like sunscreens and body lotions and things that you're putting and face creams that you're putting head to toe on your body are areas to focus on because your skin is your largest organ. And so, I think that that's super important. For me, I with Beautycounter, like I know that our products are not financial, accessible from a price point for everyone. So I would say pick and choose where you can. I mean, again, I really mean this. Like you can use coconut oil and olive oil on your skin for hydration. There are brands that I do think are doing a good job out there, that I think are my allies. I think, True Botanicals, as being one there. I don't think that Beautycounter is the only solution. Although I think that I do think there are a lot of brands claiming to be clean that are just not. And I'm not going to name them, but I think, dig one step deeper on the website to really see like, are they actually testing, where, and I'm not just talking about testing on performance, which is another thing you can just, that's another one of those like loopholes. You can have 10 people in a room at your friends and say, oh, 100% of people saw it reduced fine lines and wrinkles. Well, okay, we actually go to outside people and do that. But I do think that there are some brands. I mean, I think as you're shopping the market, if you're going to a Target, to Sephora, to Ulta, whatever is the ones that do at least stand behind clean are at least significantly better than those that just don't care at all. And obviously, if you're thinking about sunscreen as an example, you don't want avobenzone and oxybenzone. I know that it's thicker and whiter and all these other things, but really, those that have that use zinc as the blockage are better than. They also don't kill the coral reefs, which is another problem with sunscreen. So I think it's just, and look, people can go to Beautycounter, as you said, print out the list of ingredients on the Never list. We have a public facing Never list, and then we have the behind the scenes, but the public facing is the worst offenders. And you can go shop the market. And no matter whether you're in a drugstore or a grocery store or in one of the beauty, conglomerates, like there are ways to sort of navigate this and then pick and choose where you can spend. And if you have limited funds, focus on the things that go head to toe on your body.
That's such a great starting point. You've had this mission driven business for so long, and I think it can get overwhelming when you start to see all these chemicals in this long laundry list. But starting with like exactly what you're saying, what on your skin, staying on your skin all day, what you're sleeping in, like if you're rubbing yourself in lotion and laying in bed, like think about that. That's great. So
Yeah,
now,
it helps you point because I think there are things that you don't know what they are, PEGs, EDTA, like no one will often say like formaldehyde, they'll say like 1,4-dioxane or whatever, which is a byproduct. And so, or parabens, right? Methylparaben, ethylparaben. I think if you have some of these words, to look for, look, I've been doing this for a really long time and I can look at a label still and have no idea what these things are. And so, and why would you, right? I mean, I'm not a chemistry major. So I think it's trying to help people navigate murky waters in a simplified way, because we don't have a lot of time. And as consumers, unfortunately, we're still having to sort of self-advocate as we go through, spending money on personal care.
right, and exactly what you say, you're not a chemist. We all shouldn't be required to be a chemist or be a food scientist or to know how to take care of ourselves and our family, which is why I'm so grateful for all the work that you've done over all of the years, because Beautycounter has been a place for me to send my clients, to go personally, to find things that really work for me. I have to give you a shout out to Counter Time. I have to give you a shout out to your mascara, because that was one of those hard ones for me that I was used to the volume and the thickness I would get from a drugstore mascara. And then I also would get little red circles in the corner of my eyes for a long time. And then found out that gluten was a part of what was causing that redness in the corner of my eyes, and probably other chemicals as well. But I don't have those red marks, and it works. I mean, you made the cake without the sugar, the chocolate, the eggs, or the flour with that one. So cheers to you on that one.
And the vitamin C serum, which is like a gateway. I just feel like everyone, I mean, I go to places and people, when they know who I am, they're just, oh, that vitamin C serum. It's just like so amazing. So yeah, thank you. We had 3 iterations of mascara. It took us many years to get it right. It's really hard, really hard.
Well, you can check that one off your list, because that's a total all-star. Vitamin C, as you said, I have that. That's wonderful. The Counter Time is great too. knowing that I could use these products throughout pregnancy or breastfeeding and really like not have to major in beauty was really important to me. But what I also really want to advocate for with Beautycounter is this amazing group of women and men that you've hired to be your advocates. I think that people can look at a business like yours and they might point fingers and call it multi-level marketing or but you mentioned your friend who had to have a surrogate. I had a very dear friend who had a really big career, went to college, went to business school, had infertility issues, had a really big career throughout that time, and ultimately had to go the surrogacy route. And because she had a surrogate, wasn't given maternity leave. And because of Beautycounter, was able to fill in her gap year to be home with her daughter, and then made the decision ultimately to go back and use her business to career. And she's a VP at a very large company. But without Beautycounter, she wouldn't have been able to provide for her family in that way. And beyond that, throughout her whole surrogacy process her infertility process became really interested in all the chemicals that we're exposed to and became a really strong advocate for Beautycounter and everything that you're doing. So I think you're touching so many lives, and I'd love for people to understand what it looks like as a business model for the women that that are a part of your team.
Well, I love that your friend was able to do that. And of course, I hate that they didn't give her maternity leave because she was used a surrogate, but that's not surprising to me. I think that, for me, so when I started the company, there was no clean beauty. It was way earlier days on e-commerce platforms. And I had spoken to someone who had run a large beauty business who said, it was really hard for people to they would replenish products online, but the initial purchase, they couldn't see if it matched their skin tone, or they didn't know if they liked the scent profile or the texture, or whatever. And so I had come out of the retail and fashion world prior to starting Beautycounter, and I had seen the department stores starting to wane, that their influence was waning, and that people were moving away from purchasing beauty products, and many products, but certainly beauty products, from department stores. So I knew that was waning. I knew that e-commerce was going to be incredibly important, but I also knew that it was hard for people to make an initial purchase online. And I knew we had a really important story to tell, and all the incumbent brands controlled all the shelves, and many of them didn't want this story of safer ingredients to come out, let's be honest. And so a friend of mine said, have you considered direct sales? To which I said, hell no. Like, I had the same negative feelings about, because, in every industry, you have a few companies that do things in a sort of, not with a ton of integrity, or in a I don't know, less desirable way, let's say. And I had a bad impression of that because I felt that in the direct selling world, certain of the companies that I had been exposed to over the years sort of, would be like, just drink this one shot of juice and you'll live 10 years longer. It was like always over promising and under delivering, and not really doing anything that I felt was like on brand for me as a person. So a friend of mine said, let's look at this industry. So I took a look at this industry and I thought, well, this is super cool. We have an important story to tell, and there is no better way to change the world than light a fire under the asses of women. I mean, we are the women people that get up and create movements. We're the ones that are just absolutely focused on protecting our children. We're the ones that are really focusing on, saving the environment. Women, the world needs more women lending their voices and more women in power, and the world would be a much better place if there were. And that's not to the detriment of men. I mean, there are a lot of amazing men, and so many men have been influential in my life, have helped me build Beautycounter. So I always say we need women and a few good men, but we needed women to get behind this and to tell the story. Because when I started Beautycounter, it was something like less than 20% of Americans had any idea that there were chemicals of concern in the products that they use. And so we always said our story is best told person to person. And whether that's happening physically or digitally, we did that. So as I said to you earlier, I went across the country and I basically said, I'm creating a movement and I need you to join the movement. And there are several ways in which you can join. You can text your local member of Congress, you can purchase a product from us, you can build a business with us, but we need all of you to lean in to help us change this industry to protect the health and safety of American and now Canadian citizens as well. And it was really what I set out to do was change the beauty industry and to get toxic chemicals out. The byproduct of which is that we were able to economically and emotionally, in many ways, empower or power up. I'd rather say power up women creating a platform upon which they could build businesses, they could tell stories, they could lend their voices, they could earn an income, and they could be part of a community of ordinary people like me that was doing extraordinary work together. And over the past 11 years, we've basically had women join us, and we've had, I don't know, maybe 150 to 200,000 in total people who've lent their voices to this business. And most of them are doing it a couple hours a week. They are, they view themselves as educators, which they are. They're educating their communities on the need for safer ingredients. They are, we always say we use commerce as an engine for change. It's not enough just to tell the world that there are problems without any immediate solutions. We have incredible solutions in these high performing, highly effective and aspirational products. And the women that were using them and representing our brand, we're able to serve their clients and their community through these products. And then that group of women also are the very women that advocated tirelessly, 1,000+ meetings on the Hill, hundreds and thousands of text messages and local meetings, all these things that have happened that have actually afforded us the opportunity to change, for me to testify in front of Congress and for us to change federal legislation the first time in 85 years. That is because of this community of women. And the thing that I am most proud of in my life is that I've been able to work side by side with all these women, and that women are able to earn, like your friend, on the side, or sometimes they have a full-time job as a lawyer, as a banker, as a nurse, as an educator, but this is their passion, their community, their side gig, and their give back to the world. And I'm so proud of the women that have built Beautycounter with me side by side over the years. And we do have men representing us, but it is 99% women. And those people are the people you should thank for moving the industry, not me. I just one person with an idea. Those women are the people that protected the health and safety of every single citizen in this country today, and made significant changes in Canada as well. 16 pieces of legislation that have been passed. We've been front and center in those, and that's those women. So to be able to earn an income while also having significant social impact is a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think so many people have taken advantage of it and continue to. And it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. Hands down.
It gives me full body chills because we can't do it alone. And there are going to be experts that make you more well-rounded, and women that get behind and rally behind you. And it's exactly what you say. Like you're just making so much impact on so many different levels. And I mean, you should be just so proud of yourself. It's crazy to think that you just celebrated your 10-year anniversary and that it's been 10 years of really making this type of impact and waking up every day and just grinding and grinding and getting excited and sharing your passion with the world. Because there are a lot of us out there that, I mean, I remember even when we had that breakfast and you were like, you should talk about it. Like, this is for your audience. Like this is all the things that we're doing. And I was kind of like, I don't know. I'm already seeing clients and this feels like extra work, but like in watching your passion, I became passionate about it. And a few years ago, even opened, I'm not the best, but like I have the products that I love and I'm sharing it with the people that want to know more about the skincare that I'm using. And it feels good to know that I'm able to share your brand with my community and my clients because I know that they're cleaning up their medicine cabinet or their beauty drawer or whatever it is, and that's gonna impact their kids' decisions on what they're putting on their skin. Like, I think about my college roommate, Carrie, who used Dr. Bronner's in our shower in college, and I thought it was so weird, but
Yeah, I know.
mom her mom used to use Dr. Bronner's. It's like she wouldn't have known about Dr. Bronner's unless her family was using it. And so it's like it's generational change that's happening one bathroom at a time, one family at a time. And it just feels really, really cool to be a part of it and support it. It doesn't feel like at first I was like, no, it's extra work. I already have to like write health plans and have like Zoom calls with clients or in persons, but to just it's part of the whole, it's part of creating a healthy lifestyle. It's part of making sure you're protecting yourself and your kids and you're doing all the hard work with those women. And I'm happy to be a part of it.
Well, I so appreciate you saying that. And I do think I have so many people that will say to me, well, I'm not a salesperson. I'm like, we're not here to sell. We're here to serve. Our goal is to provide people with information to help them make informed choices. If they choose to purchase from us, terrific. If they don't, at least we know that we've done our job of educating and paying it forward. And what we are asking everyone and I ask this unapologetically of everyone that ever listens to me speak or listens to anything that has to do with Beautycounter is take action. text a local member of Congress. We always said, hashtag 52886, 52886, hashtag better beauty. Let people know we care about this issue, that it is not good enough to put chemicals that are known carcinogens and that cause neurotoxicity and reproductive toxicity into the products we put on our bodies, on our babies, on ourselves every single day. Unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Our health matters. Our health matters more than anything else. I always say this to people. We all take for granted our health until we don't have it. And you could be the most powerful, the most wealthy person in the world. If you're sick, you can't always fix that.
Yeah.
You can take preventative measures, and doesn't mean, and oftentimes people say, well, like my, so-and-so smoked a pack of cigarettes for, 90 years and she's fine. Yes. But why not err on the side of being cautious? We put a seatbelt on. Probably you're not going to get in a car accident and crash in that moment. But we all take these preventative measures. Let's take those preventative measures with our bodies, our temple. It's a thing that it's our most valuable asset. And we are here to help people make better choices for themselves. Again, whether they are Beautycounter choices or someone else. And I think in terms of the women sharing that information, it's what gets them out of bed every morning. It's that they want to be part of meaningful change. So many of the women in the Beautycounter community have been touched directly by health issues, their children themselves. Everyone has been touched indirectly, every single person in the world. There's no one I know that isn't dealing directly or indirectly with some health issue. And I'm proud that we have women who've been amplifying this important message for the past decade and also earning an income doing so, because we all need to make money. And why not do something where you're able to earn, potentially, not everyone does earn money doing it, but those that have focused on it, that you can earn potentially and have impact. Like, that's a great job for me. That's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. Well, you talk about women not needing to sell, but getting to serve. I know your role at Beautycounter has changed a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about what is new on the horizon for you and what is the future for Beautycounter?
Well, I stepped down as CEO in January of 2022. I took a step away from the business completely. I mean, to be totally honest, it's really hard when it's your baby and you've been running it to have someone else running it. So it was easier for me to sort of move away, although of course advocating on the side always, and still supporting our community and our associates, but doing it in a more passive way. We've recently made some changes in leadership, and I've been more involved over the last couple of months of making sure that we're staying true to everything to my vision, and making sure that we're continuing to support the women and men who are part of our community, both internally and externally. I think in terms of the future of Beautycounter is we will remain the leader in beauty. Like I always say, like, we didn't set out just to be the leader in clean. We set out to be a leader in the beauty industry, full stop. And we believe we are a next generation leader in the beauty industry. It's the work we do matters. The company is important, and we continue to strive to up the levels. So you'll be seeing, new product innovations coming out. Another big one coming soon, in the end of the first quarter of next year. So lots of new products. We're really working to better support the women who represent us in new and innovative ways. I mean, as a disruptor, you've got to continue to innovate. And I think for me, whether I'm inside of Beautycounter, on the side as the founder, or somewhere in between, my primary focus is to help people live healthier lives and to give women the confidence to use their voices to be part of meaningful change. I am a very pro-women woman. I am not anti-men. I believe that we all need to do this together, but I believe strongly, as I said earlier in this podcast, that we need a greater balance of power, and we need to utilize this incredible group of people, these women who care deeply about issues that matter. And so I will be dedicating my time in the forthcoming years with, Beautycounter and beyond Beautycounter to really helping to lift up and power up women. It's the thing that I love more than anything in the world.
Well, I can feel it coming through the computer screen. I know that if we were sitting in the same room, I would just probably want to get up and give you a hug, because it makes me feel really good to be able to amplify you here today, because I know that that's what you've done for a decade more or more, and that it's making real change for a lot of us out there. And so thank you for all that you do. Thank you for having unwavering standards, and for setting the standard for the industry, not to point out people's flaws, but to bring them up with you and to get in front of legislation and really make change. Because for some brands, it's going to take rules and regulations for them to level up, but you have set the standard in that. And because you have all these loud, powered up women behind you, I know the Beauty Counter will be one of those big names. It already is, but I can already see it as just one of those flagship brands for my little niece, Emmy, and Juliana, my other niece. Like, I can just see them using it when they grow up, and I can rely on that. And that's really powerful. So thank you for all that you've done, Greg, and all you continue to do. For everyone listening, I will link my beauty guide that shows all of my favorite Beauty Counter products that I've used and loved over the years. I'll link Beauty Counter. I'll also link Greg's Instagram. Is there anywhere else you want people to go to learn more? I'll link that your no list, because everyone needs to just print that or have that hyperlink.
Yeah. No, I think like just, I think that, to the extent that if you're interested in getting involved in any of the ways in which I mentioned, whether that's, texting, whether that's purchasing a product, or whether that's joining as a person who represents us, like, please go to beautycounter.com or ask a friend that might be involved already. I think that it's important. And I do think, do pass this information on to your children as well. I think I've seen so many book reports and so many presentations from young children. It makes me so happy people send them to me all the time. And I think we owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to ourselves to take care of ourselves. That's the other thing I think, as women primarily, but women and men, we say, oh, we're going to take care of the kids. We should take care of the kids, but you got to take care of yourself too. I want to be there when my children are getting married. I want to be there to be a grandmother. I want to be there. And so I want to take care of my health, and I want to protect my children. And, my children often are like, oh no, mom. I mean, my kids are like, oh, mom, I'm to do it. But, they think everything I'm doing is uncool, although they're proud. But I do think they are able to make better choices, and their friends are, because of them knowing what's going on out there. So it's, spread the love. That's what I would say.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm here to do. So if anyone's listening, head to the show notes. There's going to be links to all of it, and where you can follow along, where you can text your local government congressman, and how you can make change along with Greg. Greg, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for all the great work you do as well.